Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to do another one in my pros and cons versus series. This one has been requested since basically day one, and especially since we did our deep dive on VCH piercings here a couple months ago. Today we're talking about VCH piercings versus Christina piercings. Now these two piercings are really common for folks to kind of be a little unsure of which one they want to get. They're relatively visually similar piercings. They're both vulva genital piercings that go vertically through tissue towards the top of the vulva. And they both can wear lots of fun decorative jewelry options. They're both really cute, but there's some pros and cons to each of them that might help you make a decision if you're really torn between which of the two you want to get. So let's jump right into it. We're going to start off with the VCH. Now the VCH has a lot going for it. Inarguably, the first and most major of the pros for the VCH is that it's easier to pierce and easier to heal. I know this comes as a surprise to a lot of folks because when you're debating between getting the two, many folks are a little bit more shy of getting the VCH because it is closer to the clitoris, it's closer to where everything's going on. But the tissue of the hood that we're piercing with is so incredibly thin and so vascular and just really easy to pierce, really easy to heal. It tends to be a super straightforward experience. Most of my clients say that getting waxed in the area hurts worse than getting their VCH done. And it heals in a lightning quick 3 to 5 months, and you can resume activities before that 3 to 5 months, as long as you're paying attention to comfort and hygiene. If anything burns, stings, pinches, or feels weird, don't keep doing that. Wait and let the piercing heal, and you want to make sure you're being hygienic during the practice. But overall, VCHs, easy healers, fast healers, those are two of the huge pros. Now, the third big pro for the VCH is that it's functional for most folks. I mean, that's kind of the point of most genital piercings. With VCH piercings, the bottom bead of the jewelry can rest directly against the clitoris. This can create some really enjoyable sensation for a lot of different clients. Now, not everyone may get function and sensation out of a VCH. I'd say it's not quite 50-50, but I have a lot of clients who come back and tell me that they didn't really notice those functional changes. But what they did notice is two things. One, the VCH acts as like a little air traffic director, and it's like, hello, what you're looking for, it's right under here. It makes it really easy for your partner to find the clitoris and to just make things a little bit easier and more enjoyable for you during activities. The other thing is a boost in self-confidence. A lot of us can feel insecure or uncomfortable with this part of our anatomy, and getting a piercing like that can be an amazing way to feel beautiful, sexy, powerful, and just kind of help you connect with a part of your body that otherwise we often feel a lot of shame or discomfort surrounding. Now VCHs also have lots of cute jewelry options that you can wear as well. So you can do something just plain and simple, curved barbell with 2 little beads, or you can do something fun and fancy. My personal favorite is the opal heart jewelry from Anatometal. I think that looks so good for a VCH. Now the VCH piercing isn't all sunshine and rainbows. There are some cons that we have to consider with this one. The first and foremost being that the VCH is inarguably higher risk. The VCH is passing through the tissue of the hood directly over the clitoris. So this piercing is done incorrectly if it's done too shallow, if it's done going all the way through the tissue, if it's done too deep. We risk some damage to that area, and that can cause people to have changes in sensation. That is not a risk that exists with the Christina, but it is a real risk with the VCH. If you're considering getting either of these piercings, it's incredibly important that you research and seek out an educated piercer who has the proper training and understanding of anatomy to perform either of these piercings safely. And while the VCH is a much easier heal, it does come with a little bit of added risk. Now, despite the fact that there is a lot of cute jewelry you can wear in the VCH, it's pretty individual person to person what's actually comfortable to wear. And I have a lot of clients who find that they can't comfortably wear anything but simple plain beads. So another con is that your mileage may vary when it comes to jewelry. You just may find that a lot of the more decorative styles, gem settings, opals, all that stuff, feels kind of pinchy or catchy or rubs weird or just isn't comfortable for you. So go into it understanding, hopefully you can wear this cute stuff that you're thinking of, but if it's uncomfortable or doesn't feel good, you're probably not going to want to. And the final con with the VCH is that there are a lot of toys that some people love using that this doesn't always play well with. Now, when I say this, I'm mostly referring to suction-based toys and hard plastic top toys. Now, for plenty of folks, all of those toys still work amazingly well. They love them, works great, works better with the VCH, but I hear just as much feedback from other clients that these things did not work out as well with their VCH. It was uncomfortable, it was too much, the toys just couldn't work correctly with the jewelry there. So once again, understand that your mileage may vary with this. You might be the person who gets it and it works perfectly for you with everything. You might be the person who doesn't. Now that's a little rundown of the VCH, but what about the Christina? So the Christina is visually very similar to the VCH that I mentioned earlier. They're both vertical piercing, passing through the upper region of the vulva, but where the VCH goes directly through the tissue of the hood over the clitoris, the Christina goes through the ridge at the apex of the vulva where the pubic mound begins to separate and turn into outer labia. The Christina piercing has its own awesome set of pros, and the first and foremost being that it's really cute and really visible. When we think about a visible piercing in that region on the vulva, most of us are imagining a Christina. We're picturing this little sparkle right at the apex. Christinas can peek out in super low-rise underwear. They're incredibly popular piercings for me to do with dancers, sex workers, and kinksters because they have such like a wow factor when you see that little gemstone or crystal, and they just look so cute with so many different outfits. Likewise, Christinas tend to be able to wear much more decorative jewelry than VCHs do because it's kind of away from where everything is that needs to be functional. We can do really big gem clusters, we can do fun fancy stuff, and it tends to be more universally comfortable in that placement. So we've got some more options. So because the Christina sits higher up through that tissue of the pubic mound, it's significantly lower risk. Now that's not to say that these can't be done incorrectly and can't still have complications, but the worst complication you're really going to have with a poorly done Christina is just it migrating or rejecting and you being left with some scarring. And while that is an unfortunate circumstance, it's not going to come along with a major change in sensation or functionality of this portion of your anatomy. But the VCH does run the risk of that if it's done incorrectly. So the Christina overall, definitely a little bit lower risk. Because the Christina piercing, again, sits high up and away from things, that also means that it works well with virtually every toy. Whereas I hear client feedback from folks that the VCH sometimes doesn't always work out with stuff for them, the Christina, I basically never hear that. Because the bottom bead is tucked up well where even the start of the hood and the clitoris begins, so you can use all of your same toys, all of your same things, the same way you normally would, and the Christina really isn't affected at all. But the Christina does have some cons. We mentioned earlier that the pro for the VCH is that it's easy to pierce and easy to heal, and the Christina, not so much. So Christinas are typically done at a 12 to 10 gauge to be stable, and they can be done with a curved bar or an L bar, although I would say curved barbells are more common. The Christina passes through significantly more tissue than the VCH, whereas a VCH is pierced through just these tiny thin layers of tissue on your hood, barely even a few millimeters thick. The Christina is typically passing through a lot more tissue. Things like 9/16 and 5/8 are pretty common initial barbell sizes for this one, depending on your anatomy. This does mean that they take a lot longer to heal. Christinas can take 6 to 12 months to fully heal, and it's not unheard of for clients to have them take even a little bit longer than a year to fully heal. In comparison to the VCH's lightning quick healing in 3 months, that can kind of seem like an eternity. And Christinas tend to be far more fragile during their healing process than VCHs do. While with any genital piercing you can resume activities based off of comfort and hygiene, the Christina piercing is notorious for getting really easily irritated and having issues with any repeated motion that hits into it, which means most face-to-face positions with your partner might not be the best with your Christina while it's healing. Now for some clients, once it's fully healed, the piercing is nice and stable and it doesn't impact things at all. But I've also had clients who've gotten theirs fully healed, and if they are too vigorous in a position that's putting too much pressure or impact on their Christina, it still gets irritated and sore, sometimes even gets bumps. And they've had this piercing for years and years. It's stable, we did it at a 10 gauge, but sometimes they're just a little too rough with it. So Christinas also aren't always as durable because of the type of tissue that they're pierced through and because they are so much longer, deeper piercings than a VCH. Now that might not be your experience. Again, I have clients who get a Christina and heal it and it's totally fine and they never deal with any of that, but that's not always the case, so I like to mention it and be honest. Now, all of those pros with things sitting far away from the actual clitoris, things being able to be used with more toys, things being a little bit more visible, the downside of all of those factors is that the Christina is not a functional piercing. She looks really cute, she's really pretty, but she's not going to provide any direct stimulation to the area. She's not really going to provide much function. Now, Christina's can still be really confidence boosting. They can still help you build a better relationship with that part of your body, feel more comfortable with your vulva. So from that perspective, they can do a lot for functionality. But as far as bare bones, just a physically functional genital piercing, the Christina is not really going to do anything. And if you're looking for function, you might find that the VCH is the better fit for you. Now, the Christina is very anatomy dependent. I would argue that this one is more anatomy dependent than a VCH. I probably turn down only 10 to 15% of the clients who come to me for VCH piercings, but Christina's, it's really more like 40%, maybe even 50% of clients I have to say no to. You need to have a very well-defined ridge at the apex where your outer labia turns back into the pubic mound. And that tissue needs to be stable in a lot of different positions, laying, standing, and sitting. If there's no ridge there at all, or if the tissue shifts and moves too much, it might not be a good idea for us to do a Christina piercing for you. Whereas with a VCH piercing, sure, there are some people whose anatomies I can't pierce. Some people don't have enough hood to be pierceable, or it would be too shallow, or there's other structures in the area that would affect the piercing, but that's much less likely to see than seeing someone who doesn't have anatomy for the Christina. Now, between the two, deciding which one you want to get is going to be a totally individual process and experience. For clients who are looking for something that's really functional, that's maybe going to have more of a direct effect on their sex life, that's going to feel a certain way or be able to be used in a certain way, VCH is probably the one that you want to go with. And it's a much easier heel, so you're signing up for a lot less work. If you're not as interested in the functionality aspect of it, you just really want something that's going to be cute and visual and show off, if the risks with the VCH piercing make you really uncomfortable and you don't want to take a risk with those parts of your body and you're comfortable with a longer and potentially more difficult healing process, the Christina might be the right choice for you. Especially say if you're going to be getting it done while your partner is away for a little bit, then you have plenty of time to heal and you don't have to worry about some of those positions or acts that cause the Christina to get irritated, especially during initial healing. Everyone has to go with the piercing that's right for them, and my hope in giving you this information is allowing you to make a more informed decision when you're debating between getting these piercings. I can't tell you how often I see clients come in for a Christina because they're really intimidated or nervous about the VCH because of where on the body it's located, and they get the Christina and they have a really difficult time healing it. It's a long healer, it can be more prone to migration and rejection, and then eventually they say, okay, well, you went through everything with the Christina, like I'll get my VCH, and they get it done and they go, holy shit, that was it? Why in the world did I go through everything with my Christina when I could have had this easier, faster, easier to heal, and functional piercing? However, the fear and anxiety surrounding VCH piercings is super normal. They are a more high-risk piercing. So if you're just not really interested in the functionality aspect, or that risk is not a risk level that you are comfortable taking, the Christina is an incredible alternative. And if you're looking for something that's just more aesthetically or visually pleasing, you can't beat the Christina. It's so cute. It's much more visible for most folks than the VCH. And you get lots of awesome jewelry options. I've had multiple clients, particularly dancers, where Christina piercings were part of their signature look, and I think that is the coolest thing ever. Regardless of which piercing you decide to go with, please make sure that you're researching a piercer who has a lot of experience doing genital piercing work, who has a robust portfolio of both fresh and healed work, and who is knowledgeable and going to take care of your body and treat it with respect while they're working on you. All piercings are really important to be done well, but genital piercings especially. Take lightly looking at and vetting a piercer to do this type of work for you. I hope this video helps if you've been debating between these two, and thanks for sitting down and hanging out today. Have an awesome rest of your day. Bye!